Welcome to Before the Brand. Today, I'm joined by Isabel Washington, the founder and CEO of Laurels Coffee, an extremely fast-growing beverage brand, reimagining the ready-to-drink latte with premium coffee and A2 dairy. After leaving a career at McKinsey to build Laurels, Isabel has taken the company from an idea to the shelves of some of the major retailers all over the country. Today, we'll be discussing how she identified the opportunity, developed the product, broke into retail, and what she's learned building a consumer brand from the ground up. Isabel, welcome to Before the Brand.
Thanks, Ellie. It's great to be here.
Thank you. So we're going to start off with some preliminary questions. Before Laurels even happened or was an established brand, do you remember the exact moment when it stopped being an interesting idea that you had and actually became a company that you could envision and you had to pursue?
Yeah, so for a really long time, I would make brand design decks on Canva and just think about and ideate on the concept. And for me, what felt like a more committal first step, or I guess next step, was actually paying money to hire a food scientist and work on the actual product development piece of it. So I remember for a long time, it was just a fun little design on Canva. And then when I was ready to make the jump, I think it was $3,800 was the first payment for the food scientist. And that was what felt committal to me in taking that first step.
Super cool. So it definitely wasn't a path that you had envisioned for yourself. How did that kind of start for you personally?
Yeah, no, not at all. I always loved, whenever I was in college and at school, I always thought I'd work in an early stage startup when I graduated. But a lot of those roles are more technical. At least at the time, they were more software engineer roles and PM roles. And there weren't really a ton of opportunities in early stage businesses if you weren't in one of those tracks. So the best next option was to start my own early stage company that I could work at.
And ever since Laurels has launched, what do you think is the most surprising thing that has happened, either to you personally or to the overall brand? What do you think is something that you didn't expect, but it happened anyway?
Yeah, the easy answer is always the growth of the business. It's crazy to think 2 years ago, we just turned 2 on August 1st. So literally 9 days ago. And it's crazy to think that we so early in our business sell thousands of cans of coffee a day, especially in such a competitive category like coffee. We've managed to break through. So I never would have in a million years, all the models that I put together pre-revenue they're all null and void now. I could have never anticipated this.
Super cool. Was scaling a big thing, in your opinion? Getting to multiple retailers and multiple stores?
Yeah, for sure. It's been the biggest piece of it all.
And on the flip side, what do you think has been much harder than you anticipated, or something that you didn't really expect to be as challenging and maybe dense?
In the same way, it's been scaling. I think that it's very easy to get into, or I guess it's not easy, but it's been very easy for us, fortunately, to get into a lot of these retailers very early on in their cycle. But actually getting pulled off the shelf when someone has the brands they like, has the flavors that they like, convincing people to change their routine and try something new, sometimes at a higher price point than something that they like, has been a challenge. So we're always thinking of creative ways to further bring people in.
And how did you manage that with all the competition? Because as you said, coffee is super popular right now, especially on the go coffee. People are always wanting to bring it to work or whatever it may be. So how did you guys handle the competition and trying to differentiate from it?
Yeah, I think that packaging is first and foremost, right? I think that a lot of people, you and I both, were in the same kind of age range of people who love cutesy packaging, who love to try new things. So I think speaking directly to your consumer, building something for your consumer, a lot of what's in the category right now is the kind of salted caramel and mochas and flavors that you and I probably don't get from the coffee shop. We're getting things a little more fun, experiential. So building something as the person, I'm 26, which is years away from you for sure, but building something for the person that you're trying to sell it to, I think helps. I think a lot of people, a lot of, let's say millennials or people in their 40s or 50s who try to build products for us and miss the mark. I think there's a lot of things that we can point to. And similar, I probably shouldn't build a product for seniors. So I think it goes both ways, but I think that's first making sure that it actually communicates what and to whom you're trying to communicate it to.
Relatability, trying to appeal to your audience has been a big thing for you guys.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys are in Erewhon right now.
Mhm.
So how did you initially get that meeting? Because Erewhon has become super popular recently.
Yeah, I think kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, to the point that you have to just build a product that's fundamentally different. So while it's really competitive, it has to hit Erewhon from a unique angle on packaging, on price point, on everything has protein in it nowadays. There's probably 25,000 protein sodas they see every day. So it's like, how can you be the best tasting protein soda, or the best macros, or the most unique packaging? I was in Erewhon the other day, and there was like a flask shaped hydration that's very unique for the category. I think it was really about, there wasn't really a ton of innovation happening in Erewhon. They have pretty unique or pretty strict ingredient standards. To innovate within those constraints can be pretty difficult. So they don't really see a ton in that way. And we just kind of matched what they're looking for.
That's great. Moving on to the buyer side, which metrics do you think matter most to grocery buyers?
There's something it's like incrementality. So if you're looking at a category in coffee, for example, you never want to take away sales from another product. You want to grow the overall category. So a very like black and white. So if for water, for example, if the entire category is just plain still water, and you come along and you bring in a sparkling water brand, you're going to bring in, like, you're not cannibalizing the still water sales. You're bringing in people who are looking to buy sparkling water, and there wasn't sparkling water to begin with. So category managers largely think about things the same way. They never want to bring in products that are going to compete with each other, because it'll just make the category smaller, and everyone's, at the end of the day, they're judged on how many dollars are moving through their categories. So they want to bring in products that are adding value, adding something new, bringing in new consumer. And that's really opportunity for them and their categories to grow really are.
That's super interesting. I actually didn't think about the fact that they want less competitiveness and more expand.
Yeah.
Pretty
So like
cool.
for us, like one of our flavors is dirty chai. We're the only dirty chai. And pretty much like Erewhon has a dirty chai flavor, like brand, but in every other category, Target, Whole Foods, etc., we're the only one. So the people who are drinking dirty chai are probably not going to drink vanilla, or probably not going to drink, like, because dirty chai is like fundamentally different flavor. So that's like really opportunity. Very similar thing with matcha. Like matcha's not coffee, right? So people who are looking to lower their caffeine intake, look for a coffee alternative. Maybe they had coffee in the morning and they want matcha in the afternoon, whatever it is. But people generally are not like, am I going to have coffee or matcha? They're looking for either coffee or they're looking for matcha.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you guys were like building these unique flavors and in general just building the brand, which retail expense surprised you the most?
Retail is very expensive. There's slotting fees, which essentially is like rent in a way. So to be on shelf, you literally have to pay the retailer just to have that space on the shelf. And then you have to go in. A lot of retailers require you to go on promotion. So you might go on promo, like $2 off or whatever, for 16 weeks out of the year. You have to fund all of that. So it's really expensive. I had no idea how expensive it was to be in retail. So I would probably say that's the biggest surprise. Everything costs money. If you want a display, it costs money. If you want a cooler, it costs money. Like everything in the store just costs money to execute.
I feel like a lot of people wouldn't know that. I feel like they would think it kind of just comes with having brand.
Yeah, I think like something that came as a shock to me, and maybe people know this and I just didn't, but because I didn't, I'm going to tell in case someone else didn't. But whenever I saw stuff on sale at the grocery store, I assumed that it wasn't doing well. I assumed that it was like on clearance, or the store was trying to move their inventory, but not that it was like a lever that brands can use to get people to buy more product. So I thought that was super interesting. Because now it's like a lever. When should we go on sale? And how deep should the sale be? And should it be 2 for $6 or 3 for $9? They're the same thing. Psychologically, they're like a little bit different because people are going to get 3 maybe instead of getting 2. There's a lot of interesting strategy that goes into it. But yeah, it costs a lot of money.
Very cool. For you guys, how often does the average repeat customer buy it? And that can be like for your brand in specific, or like a goal that in general coffee brands have.
Yeah, so coffee, and honestly probably most beverage brands, like you're going to want to get at least in that like 4 to 5 times a week. Like coffee, people are drinking it every day. Obviously, like maybe not on Fridays because they don't go into the office, maybe not on the weekend because they got to a coffee shop. There's some variants to get to 7 days a week. That would really only be like supplement type, like consistency and repurchase rates. But I would say generally, if you can get into kind of that like 4 to 5, like working, like kind of the work day habit, I think that's a pretty good place to be.
As a company, are there any other companies that you admire or use as kind of like role models for when you are building Laurels?
Yeah, there's a few. I think that Leisure's built a really great business, Leisure Hydration. Both from like on the business side, like they're just very smart, think about things very methodically, know every number in their business, like the back of their hands. They're really great founders, but also just a great product that's fitting a need, bridging a gap. They've also seen a ton of growth over the last, I think it's been 3 or 4 years for them. So that's really great. I think Bloom's super interesting.
Yeah, that's very popular.
Yeah, very popular. A very young brand. I think that their drinks specifically are only like 2 or 3 years old. So a very young brand that's going to do 600 million or something in revenue this year. Pretty insane. The power of marketing and really just like speaking to your consumer. It's a masterclass. So I would say probably those two.
And Bloom has scaled a lot. I mean, like even in the last year, like they've just come out with a lot of different products. And I feel like some have worked really well with like what their audience needs.
Yeah, I think that their whole thing is like moving at kind of the speed of culture. So they had like Shirley Temple and they had the summer rocket pop flavor, and like they're always doing stuff like that, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, this is one of the last questions, kind of a fun one. A founder or a specific person that you would most likely have coffee with or have a coffee. It could be anyone. It could be a fictional, like a really cool person that you admire, really anyone.
Yeah, probably in that same vein, that there's 2, I'll say. One being the Bloom founder, I guess co-founder, Greg Lavecchia. And the other would be the David Barr / RX Bar, Peter Rail. I think both 2 just experts in brand marketing and product positioning.
Before the brand is mainly targeted towards kids my age, like mid to late teens that really want to get started into business. So if you had to leave everyone watching with like one last piece of advice, kids that really want to go into business but don't know how to start, or kids that want to pursue it in college but don't know what their first steps would be, what type of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I would say definitely go to college. It's becoming increasingly popular to skip kind of any kind of formal education. So this is probably a hot take more than anything else, but I would say go to college. Some of my best learnings were the time that I spent at McKinsey working with literally the top companies in the country, if not the world, alongside the best consultants. Biased, obviously, but the best consultants in the world. Learned a lot about business, a lot about professionalism, which I think goes really far. And you get to learn a lot on someone else's dime. But again, the biggest business is trying to solve the toughest problems. So I think that's, you go into consulting if you can. I had a really good time, generally speaking. But even if you do not go that route, any opportunity you can have just work in a business with someone that you really admire, that you think is doing something really exciting and really great, that inspires you, an incredible opportunity for sure.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful. I really appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks, Ellie.